My point being is it's the game. The game's the greatest teacher. What's the best teacher? Life. Life's the best teacher. You gotta be okay with listening to it, And so my recommendation to any 9-hole guys.
Arteaga drives one to center. Miller hustling over. Diving catch by Ian Miller. A great catch.
3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the 9-Hole Podcast. This is your host, Ian Miller. As of late, I've been extremely fortunate, as I've touched on, man. I've had some of the game's best leaders, greatest minds on here. Today is no different. It is an absolute honor to have this man on my podcast today, on the 9-Hole Podcast. The pitching coach, the assistant coach of the number one team in the country, the Wake Forest Deacons. Corey Muscara, how are you doing? What's going on? And how is life as the number one team in the country?
It's just another opportunity for a great day. I know it sounds super, super cliche, but look, I think the problem with a lot of things is like when you start to have success, you start to believe in your success and you start to forget about like all the habits and the little things that got you to where you need to be. So for me, like I really want to have a good day. Like I want to be grateful for my good day. I want to have really good habits and I want to be with the boys, I think when we start thinking about things outside of that, we can get lost quick. And that's not to say that I don't want to visualize and believe that we can win a national championship. That's part of it. But that's also part of like the everyday, right? Like when I wake up in the morning and I start my habits and I start my morning routines and I start priming, like I've been doing that for a long time. So that doesn't change. It's still part of my process. Like I think sometimes people get confused. Like, you obviously want to be humble and you want to be, you want to stay focused, right? But just because you want to stay focused and you want to stay in your process doesn't mean your process can't allow you to think big. And I think people mistake the two, right? Like you can still think big. You can still think you're going to be the best at whatever it is you do, but you have to have a process to maintain that. And you have to be consistent on it. Right. It's not mutually exclusive. You don't have to just like do your habits all the time and like self-deprecate yourself. And I've had to learn that the hard way. I'm self-deprecating quite a bit. And so one of the things I'm like trying to be better at, especially with more success, you have everyone that is kind of pulling at you and you have everyone congratulating you or saying whatever. And hard for me to say thank you without like being self-deprecating, and to steal something from Bruce Lee, right? Be mindful of what you say because words matter. That's why we call it spelling, right? Because you cast spells on yourself, right? And whether you believe that or not, like the words and how you say and how you speak matter. And it's hard for me because I've always kind of been like the underdog, nobody from nowhere. And so like when people are like, hey, great job, I'm like, yeah. I don't like it because I'd rather have an edge. I'd rather like think that like I haven't done anything. I need that, And what I've learned is it's definitely a balancing act. You have to stay on your branch, you have to stay on your process, but you also have to think big. And you have to have a lot of gratitude for what's happening. Because if you don't, you're not getting more of it, So just trying to figure out how to balance all that is the hard part, and staying consistent. That's the hard part,
I love that, man. So you guys are obviously way less than, a month away from the season, man. 2-3 weeks away from first pitch, whatever it is. You're just coming off of, your second, man. You just finished your second year. You're entering your third season, right? 2024 here at Wake. So you guys are currently ranked number one in the country. Last year, first College World Series appearance, right, since 1955. Man, D1 Baseball's Assistant Coach of the Year. I was in Texas for the ABCA convention. I wanted to touch on that a little bit, but you just brought up something amazing. And, the first kind of thing that I hit you with, that underdog chip on the shoulder mindset. You're kind of like a underdog nobody. I wanted to touch on that kind of part of your story before we, deep dive into the success you guys have had in the past year or two. Man, what was that like for you playing baseball in the Northeast, coaching in the Northeast, maybe, growing up around that side of baseball? to where you're at now? Like, is that a night and day difference between the level of competition, maybe how everything, the way you go about business?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game's the same game. The game's not much different. But yeah, it's night and day. Like we talk about it. We have a lot of Johnnies here. I a lot. You played at Wagner. You guys beat us in a football game. One of the most embarrassing games I've ever been a part of. But I used to coach at St. John's, and Matt Wessinger played at St. John's. Mickey Bassett was our director of operations at St. John's. Ty Blankmeyer, obviously Ed Blankmeyer's son, used to coach here previously. And being here is life's just easier in the South. When I was in the Northeast, like I had that chip, right? I was like, I'm never leaving the Northeast. Like I'm a Northeast guy. It's tougher up here. We gotta play in 20 degrees. We gotta really grind. We gotta work. We gotta, And I was like, why am I doing this? Like it's so much harder, but I'm thankful for that because again, Lou Carnesecca, I'm gonna mess the quote up, but he had a quote where it was like a day lived in New York City is like a week lived anywhere else in the world. And it was like on our wall, like when you walked into St. John's. And it's so true. It's so true. Like I used to live an hour and 30 minutes from work, and I would have 45 to sometimes an hour of traffic every day. And I had 6 a.m. lifts, and we practiced till 6:30. So like you're leaving the house at 4:45, you're getting home at 9 every day. You're paying $8,000 a year in tolls just to go to work. Like you're playing in the freezing cold. You're recruiting kids to New York City and not Times Square, but Queens. You know what I mean? Like it was hard. And we had some good teams at St. John's because Coach Blankmeyer was a stud. But like that, like battleground, if you will, of having to do things in that environment makes so many things so much easier. You appreciate so much more. And even like dating back to when I played at I played at Franklin Pierce, coach Southern New Hampshire, like, man, like, we used to drive our vans everywhere. Like whatever we needed done, like we didn't have a strength coach. So like we were the strength coach, we didn't have this. So we were it. So kind of growing up with that mentality, it allows you to have so much appreciation when you have a 6-minute drive to work, when your wife and kids can come to all the games, when you can have lunch with them whenever you want, when you have every resource you've ever imagined having. You're in a good mood because you're like, man, this is a lot better than it was before. So even today, when it's raining outside and it's a miserable day, I still came in a windbreaker. That this was, if I was in the Northeast, I'd be in a parka right now. You know what I mean? So like every single day for me, I'm like, it's better than it's been, better than yesterday. And I'm a big gratitude guy. So like, I think if you don't understand what you have, you're never going to get more of it. I talk about it every day with our players. I make them write down what they're thankful for multiple times a week. So I'm super thankful for everything I started off with because everything tastes a little bit better right now. Like I don't take any of it for granted. I walk into this building every day and I'm like, damn, this is nice. Like every day. I've been here for 3 years and every day I'm like, pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
It's amazing. It puts everything into perspective. Obviously, if you are grinding in the Northeast and then you get to experience, what you are experiencing, that's awesome. The gratitude part of it, making your players write it down. That is also something I wanted to touch on in a little bit about the competition, the stuff that you spoke at. You touched on it at the convention, man. I wanted to talk about maybe some competition, some point system stuff that you keep track of, right, with bullpens and keeping score. But I wanted to touch on the pitching dominance, man, before we kind of, unwind it into that. So, man, this past year, obviously, like I'm just straight reading stats right now, right? So you guys led the nation, lowest ERA, lowest hits per 9 innings, lowest whip, strikeout-to-walk ratio, and you led the nations in the strikeouts per 9 innings, man. You guys, you touched on it. Coach Bill Salento, I believe, touched on it as well in Texas, man, when you guys were speaking, to the coaches clinic, man. Your players need to believe they're awesome. They need to believe in what they're doing, right? So Coach Bill was talking about, creating a winning environment is just you're surrounded by challenges. You're making practice tough. You're making, the competition. You're just, whatever it is, like you're making the practice challenging so that the games are hopefully a little bit easier, man. How do you guys get the most out of your pitchers that way, with the challenging environment versus making them believe in themselves, making themselves maybe feel sexy, as you will? Like how are you able to craft up that environment and get the most out of your pitching staff?
Yeah, so it's all encompassing, right? It's not only with the pitchers. The first thing I think people go wrong with all the time is they look at pitchers and hitters separately. Maybe you could do that in pro ball, but you sure as hell can't do that in college baseball, right? So like we have to like make sure we're doing that as a team first and foremost. So we're employing that into every minute detail of our days. Okay, so for example, every single day someone's either in a black or a gold shirt or a gray and a black shirt, and we track what team you're on. Okay, so every day we have some level of competition, whether it's a 20, like one team's 27 out team, and like we draft like it's kickball on the playground every day. So we'll pick captains and we have a draft, and you're either, if you pick last, like get better, so that's feedback right there, like, and we do it every day. And even if it's like a defensive drill, the pitchers are still on a team, no matter what. So you might not even get a single rep in the drill, but you might get an L. Well, that happens a lot if you're a pitcher. You might not throw an inning, but you got an L because your team lost. So we're always talking about that first and foremost. I think where a lot of people don't understand is like how psychologically you want your team to be engaged all the time. Make everything about the team, whether they had control or not. Because then soon what they figure out is that, man, I can't do anything right now other than be a good teammate. The only thing I can do is try to make sure that guy's in a good headspace. The only thing I can do is pick that guy up. The only thing I can do is try to steal someone's sign. The only thing I can do is try to see if he has a tell. The only thing I can do is pay attention to see if they're stealing our signs. You see what I'm saying? So like if you're not playing, like, and you don't want an L, like figure out how you can help your team. That might make someone that's playing better. So it starts there. Okay. That's first and foremost. And when they walk into the building, we have a winning percentage. Everybody has a winning percentage. We track every day your wins and losses, and we just put it up. So if you're like 20-2 in competitions, you're whatever that winning percentage is, and we rank them one through the bottom. So it starts there. Then we filter through everything. So like in BP every day, they track every round of BP. They track like, each round. It's an oppo round, it's a gap to gap round, it's an execution round, whatever the round may be. It's different every day. And I don't do the hitting stuff. I know what they're doing, but I'm not involved. But whatever the round is, they track it. Someone's literally manually tracking it. They put it every day consistency. They put it into an Excel. It gets posted. So they have the daily score. They have the weekly score. They have the aggregate score. It's the same thing for everything we do, right? We do it for defensive. So like every day, we're tracking how many plays everybody made. So you want to figure out how hard they're playing in practice. Look at how many touches they have. You were a center fielder, right? And around a BP, you only get 7 touches. Well, you're probably half-assing it, but you get 15 touches, lay it out a couple times. There's effort, right? We have things called LOEs, lack of efforts, right? So we track lack of efforts. We track plays made. We track hustle plays. We track errors. We track clean glove. We track it all. Every time we do like a PFP or something, we have the stopwatch out. It's a Blankmeyer thing, right? We stopwatch it, game clock, we track it, right? And we post this. So like literally you're like, oh, I'm number 1, I'm 2, I'm 3, I'm last, on everything every day, on everything we do. For pitchers, we do the same thing for bullpens, right? So we don't just throw a bullpen, we track time between pitches. We track the percentage of holds they're in, what percentage are holds on a bar graph, like what's their intended location strategy? Did they hit their intended target? We break it down by glove side fastballs, arm side fastballs, change ups, whatever. We keep an aggregate score of it. We post it every day. We give minus points if they're tipping pitches, minus points if they're in the same cadence of hold every time. We track their leg times. We track the time between pitches. Like, just so in a normal bullpen, you're out there just throwing, but we're going to know what your intended targets were, how many of them you hit, how much time between pitches you had, were you in the same cadence of hold, and were you tipping pitches? So you just throw a 15-pitch pen, but like we have all that, and we track it forever, and we know it, and we show it, and we rank it. And then when we scrimmage, we do the same things, right? We have shove scores. The Mariners had shove scores for the pitchers when you were there. This is where I got the idea from. But they did it through run values, through stuff plus models, through all these things. We didn't have a lot of that when I first got here. So we did it through the things that I cared about, which I learned from Ed Blankmeyer. So we did it like first pitch strikes, out in 3, walk rate, K rate, average exit velocity, time between pitches, percentage of holds you're in, stolen bases allowed, runs allowed, time, length of inning, time on the field, time of possession, length of inning. And it spits out on like a 20/80 scale, basically. You can get above an 80, it's hard to do, but it's basically a 20/80 scale. So each time you throw, it'll spit out a number. Hey, today was a 75 shove score. Today was an 80 shove score. Today was a 20. You stunk. You know what I mean? Like, so it has like the algorithm that kicks it out instantaneously. And it never fails. Like if your shove score is good, you dealt and you did all the little things right. Like you held runners, you didn't tip pitches, you were getting ahead in the count, you didn't give up any runs, you worked fast, your fielders made plays behind you. And again, it's never just like, how's your stuff? It's like, what's the big picture? Like, what's winning baseball? You know?
It's amazing. That's
And
amazing.
so we track that there and we rank them and we track it. We don't just track it by the day, right? We track every day. We track it by time frame. So like fall 2023, preseason 2023, season. And then we can do it all by overall time you're here. We have it in graphs, seeing like what your average shove score is. Are you getting better? Are you getting worse? And then we do the same thing for all of our stuff. We do the same thing for all of our pitches, like for like, how's our shapes on our fastball, like everything you can think of. And we also do the same thing where we video everything. So we video like anything you can think of. And whether it's team oriented, we'll break out clips and put it in the team meeting room and we'll have them watch it. Like, hey, here's a lack of effort. Like you could have laid out and saved a free 90, but you didn't. Or, hey man, this guy had an unbelievable dirt ball read here. Like this is an instinctual big time play. And we pull it out on the carpet every day. So we're always being honest and we're always showing. And so that's where the honesty comes in. That's where the challenge comes in, is like we don't do anything vastly different than anyone else does in their practices. We're just psychotic about tracking everything and ranking everything. And then we show everything. We're like very utterly transparent. And in the midst of all this, we try to have as much fun as possible. So like the accountability, we're not screaming and yelling. We're not running guys. Our accountability is in their performance. Our accountability is in the truth. Like, hey man, like you got a 590 wOBA on your fastball. That's in the 100th percentile of suck. That stinks. You're the worst average wOBA in the game. If you don't want to change, that's cool. I'm cool, man. I'm not yelling at you, but you're the worst guy right now. So we have to change it. Do you agree? You don't want to be the worst guy? Yeah. Okay, so let's change it. Here's our strategy. That's the truth. That's the accountability. You see?
It's amazing.
But like everything else is like when they come into the building, music's bumping. And we let them run the aux. All practice, all day, having fun. You know what I mean? We let them break balls. We let them joke around. We let them be themselves. If they have their hat on backwards, I don't care. Like if they have whatever, I don't care. Like just be you. Like have fun. I don't care. I want you to be excited to come to the yard. Where is the accountability going to come in? Hey, man, you haven't landed a breaking ball for a strike in 3 weeks. We got to figure that out. I don't know much, but I know that's not good. So we got to change our grip. We got to change our location strategy. We got to change something. Hey, man, if you don't want to do that, that's cool, bro. But you're not going to pitch. So let me know if you want to change it. If you do, I'll have some ideas.
It's amazing. So
and then what happens is then now you have buy-in, right? Now you're like, oh, bro, you're right. I didn't realize it was that bad. I didn't realize I haven't landed a breaking ball in a week. Yeah, I want to learn. All right, cool. Let's figure it out. I don't have all the answers, but I got a couple ideas. Let's try these ideas. Oh, that one works. Why do I know it works? Because we tracked it. Oh, hey, 2 weeks later, hey, man, you went from like, for your last 30 breaking balls for strikes to like your 20 of your last 30. I don't know much, but I know that's better. So that's how everything is. Everything is that way. Everything.
It's a winning environment. You're creating a winning environment. You have the best team. You guys have the best players in the country coming to play for you guys, and you're creating that winning environment. You're letting them be themselves. You're supplying them, providing them with the data, the facts behind it. I was gonna ask, kind of tied into the question I just hit you with, like, dude, you guys have the best college baseball talent, best players on campus, like how do you create a challenging environment and just being able to hold them accountable like that, show them the graphs, the statistics, all that stuff. They can police themselves almost, right?
Yeah,
Hold themselves
it's so
accountable.
funny you say that. One of the things that we say every single day, we got it from the book Legacy that we read 2 years ago. It's about the New Zealand All Blacks, who's like the greatest winning franchise in any sport ever.
Rugby.
But their big thing is be player led, not coach fed. So like every single day, all we talk about is, you're player led, not coach fed. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, they're like, oh, what do I got to do to play more? And I just like go over this stuff and I look at it. You're a 1/6 of the plate. That's controllable. That's not very good. Let's start there. Um, you don't throw arm side fastballs for strikes, and I like to pitch in. So we probably need to get better with arm side fastballs for strikes. Let's just work on those two things right now. Like, because anything else is whatever. Or you're like, hey man, like you're yanking everything glove side and your spin efficiency is awful, and this isn't what we're trying to do right now. And I know you're not trying to do that. So there's probably something in your delivery wrong that we need to like address. And then we look at the delivery and we're like, okay, we think this is why you're doing this. We think this is the reason. Let's try these 3 drills in our lead up progressions pre-throw every day. And we're going to video everything you do and we're going to track it. And we'll see if it gets better. And we'll let you know.
I love it.
So like that's how everything is. It's like I never tell anybody anything where like, yo, this is how it's done. I'm like, hey, this is bad. We should try to attack it. Here's my ideas. You tell me what you like. Let's track it and see if it's getting better. If it's not getting better, we'll abort mission and try a new strategy. If it is working, we'll know that it's working and we can lean into that. So that's all everything is. It's like, hey, this should work. This shouldn't work. If a guy's dealing, I just pat him on the ass and say, good job. I don't need to like get in the weeds. If a guy's good, I just go, high five, buddy. Keep it going. You know, and part of the problem is like I think most people are like, whoa, I got to put my stamp on him. Like, I don't need to do anything. Like, I need to make sure my kids believe in themselves and we're trying to be winners. Like, I got to be a good person. I got to get them to believe in themselves. I got to create a winning culture. If I do those things, everything else takes care of itself. It's not about me. It's about the players. And that's why, like I was saying to you before we got on air, I was like, man, I feel really like kind of guilty that I'm doing all these podcasts because I feel like it's about me. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about the players. It's not about how great we are and being number one. It's about showing up every day and being like, we're going to get after it. We're going to have an awesome day. You know, like, and if we stack enough awesome days, we're going to be pretty good. And if we have bad days, we probably needed the bad days so we can get better. Because it's not a bad thing to be bad. It's not a bad thing to stink. That gives you feedback. That's giving you information. And the truth of the matter is most of the world doesn't like failing anymore. That's why no one's good at anything. Because they don't want to fail. They live in an Instagram society where everything's all hunky-dory all the time. So no one ever really grows. They live in this fake world where they're not actually doing anything and they're lying to themselves. And so like if you want to be good at something, you're going to have to go through some shit. I'm sorry. Like that's part of life, man. You got to figure things out. And
Absolutely.
That's actually a blessing. That's what people don't understand. That's a blessing. When you go through some shit, you're learning. You're deciding, how bad do I really want this? You're deciding, how much do I really love this? You're having to answer that question to yourself. And if you're like, man, I really love this, I want to do this, well, you're on the right track. Go ahead, keep going. You'll figure it out. You know?
Absolutely. That fired me up right there. I wrote a couple things down, man. So you are saying you're not going to be hands-on necessarily. You're not looking to change anything. You'll just pat a guy on the ass if he's absolutely dealing, right?
Yeah, Rhett Lauder, I just go, Rhett, good job. Like, you want to know how I coach Rhett Lauder? I did the scouting report, painstaking detail, and I memorized it. And then I handed the scouting report to Rhett Lauder, and I put all the video of all the hitters on the screen, and I put my feet up on the chair, and I went, Rhett, How about it, dude? You decide how you want to pitch the first 9 hitters. Here's all the information. Here's the video. Here's my recommendations. You tell me what you want to do, Rhett. That was it.
It's
You're
amazing.
like, really? Like, yeah, he's good. Get out of his way.
What
Don't
more?
mess it up.
Yeah. You're just going to cloud it, right? If you try to put your hands on it, right? That makes a ton of sense. So how does obviously you go online, you can look up, man. You guys have the pitch lab, right? You guys have tech, you guys have tech data, all that stuff. You track everything. How does that factor into your pitchers, man? That success. How often are you guys in there? Are you utilizing it like a cage, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
basically. That's a good way of describing it. I mean, the biggest thing we use in there, honestly, is TrackMan. I say it like 1,000 times a day. Ball don't lie, ball don't lie, ball don't lie. Right? Like the ball tells you everything. Balls tell you how you're moving. Like, obviously ball flight is predicated on how you're moving. But if we see objective data in the ball, we can reverse engineer what it is we're doing. Also, ball don't lie is like, how does the hitter react? Right? You could see a pitch and like it looks good on TrackMan, but the guy's just barrel finder 5,000. That ain't it, bro. That ain't it. Like the hitter's gonna tell you what's going on. And I just like for me, it's like I laugh so much because it's like, dude, just watch the hitter. Like our job's to get you out, right? So if you're on time and it's Hayata, right? Like, okay, like don't do that. Like, we need to get him off time. We need to get him to flinch. We need to get him to move his feet. We need to get him off the barrel. So all like I'm thinking about is like, what's the ball telling me? Like, how am I going to get him off the barrel? And then from there, like I'm looking at the delivery to say, okay, like I know that if I put this into a predictive, equation, like, hey, this is probably going to mean that X is going to happen because we have a lot of like analytical and statistical stuff that gives us like you know expected WOBAs, expected this, expected performance metrics. We got stuff plus scores because Chris Lewis, aka Codes, who's the director of analytics. I call him Codes because he's like cheat codes for a video game. Dude's a stud. He was actually with us. He was a student and like kind of built out our whole department and built out all our shiny apps and everything. And then he went with the Blue Jays, and I felt kind of lost without him. So
Mm-mm.
because Coach Walter's like a stud and basically just finds a way to like make everything happen, I just went to Coach Walls like, dude, we need to get Codes back. Like I'm lost without Codes.
It's amazing.
And so we got Codes back, and he allows us to like figure out a lot of things because you can make assumptions, like it kind of keeps you, it's like bumpers in bowling is what it is, honestly. Like it just keeps you on the straight and narrow. Like it keeps you on the path. It's guardrails to make sure that we're not getting lost.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Man,
And as far as like biomechanical stuff, like look, candidly, like biomechanics is like it's deep, right? Like there's a lot to it. I was on the phone this morning with my good buddy Matt Swope, who's the head coach at Maryland. Actually, that's who I was talking to when I was supposed to be on this Zoom call with you. But like the problem with like so biomechanics is awesome, and it does tell you how someone's moving. It does tell you like it gives you a lot of cues, but there's so many layers to it, right? Everybody moves differently, so like you can't take one principal move, whether it's swinging or throwing, and extrapolate that out to be like everybody should move that way, right? And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, right? Like you know you're a left-handed. Was you left-handed or right-handed? Left-handed, right?
yep,
Lefty, and
lefty.
you right. Your game is bat the ball. Your game is control your at bat. If I'm trying to tell you to like swing uphill like teacher man and hit him in the third deck, like you're an out. You're free because you can absolutely nut on a ball and it's going to the track, right? But if I'm telling you like, hey man, like we're gonna be flat, you're gonna be inside the ball, you're gonna be a bat the ball guy, and you're running 3 9s, 4 O's to first, and you're taking 3 bags and you're wreaking havoc. And my guy on the mound's like, damn, I got to be quicker to the plate because Ian Miller's on first base. And I slide step and I get underneath the ball and I leave a cookie up and my 3-hole guy goes Hayata. Then now what's your war? What's your war? Right. And so like for me, it's like, like I laugh so much at like what we do right now in baseball because it's like, look, analytics is good. Biomechanics is good. all this stuff, motor preferences are awesome. Like all this stuff is great. But at the end of the day, we need to win games. So we need to take all this information and like help us put the puzzle together so it makes sense for each individual for how that individual can help impact the win and the loss. But the problem in pro ball right now is we systematically look at things and we're like, all right, well, this is what a big leaguer looks like, so everybody's got to do that. Or this is what they look like, so we have to do this. Or we have to pitch this way. Everyone's throwing sweepers. You're like, okay, well, he's a pronator, so like, why are we throwing sweepers? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense. You know, like that's the reality. Like, you have to, like, if you're playing a game and everybody thinks differently, everybody moves differently, everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and our only goal is to win the game, then put everyone in their strengths to find a way to win the game. Don't make it a blanket thing, you know? Figure out what they're good at. Figure out how they move right. Figure out how they want to move. Figure out how they think. Figure out their personal life. Figure out what makes them tick. And then you want guys to have fun. It's a lot better. You have a lot more fun in life when you're your authentic self. Like when you're speaking truth and you're being your best self, that's when you can be free. But if you're making someone be somebody they're not or do something they don't want to do, they can't be free. They start pointing fingers. They start having excuses. You know? So like you got to find out, and you're never going to figure it out for everybody. But the goal, your players should know, hey man, he wants me to be my best self. And not everybody's going to get there. Look, not everybody can play here, right? Truthfully, like we got 22 pitchers, right? Not everybody can play here. They're not all going to pitch. Doesn't mean I don't like them. And candidly, like, yeah, like I'm not going to bullshit you. Like I don't spend the same amount of time with pitcher number 22 as I do with pitcher 1. I'd be lying to you if I said I did. I'm not Gandhi. I'm not out there like trying to like make everything a participation trophy, right? But guy number 22 knows he's guy number 22. I don't have to yell at him or tell him. And he knows it. Well, this is how I'm performing. This is what I'm doing. This is what's not happening. So then at that point, he has a choice. Does he want to be disgruntled? Does he want to be a malcontent? Does he want to be an excuse maker? Or does he just want to be a great teammate? Does he just want to bring good vibes to the yard every day? Does he want to pick other people up? Does he just want to be in a good mood? Does he want to do what's asked of him? Does he want to try to be from 22 to 20? Does he want to go from 20 to 18? I can live with that guy. That guy's my boy because he's buying into a role. Yeah, I might not spend every second with him, but he's doing his job and he can stick around, and I'm cool with that guy. You know, but like, and then when he starts to like really make jumps and grow, okay, yeah, well, you're gonna get my undivided attention.
For sure.
Again, doesn't mean I'm not going to be respectful. Doesn't mean I'm not going to care about him. Doesn't mean I don't want him to be a good person. Doesn't mean I don't want him to do the things the right way. Doesn't mean I don't have a standard for him. But I'm lying to you if I said, yeah, I spend the same amount of time with guy number 22 as I do with Josh Hartle.
For sure.
No, I don't. Like, that's not true. I spend more time with Josh Hartle.
Like, 100%.
He's our ace. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he's going to impact wins and losses more. But it's the same thing in the workplace. You know, like the CEO is not spending the same time with the new intern as he is with their CFO, right?
For sure. Moving up the ranks.
The GM's more focused on Juan Soto than he is in the guy in high A, right?
For sure.
You know, like it's a world. It's the life we live in. I'm sorry.
I love it.
You don't like it, like be better. I don't know what you want me to tell you, you know?
So getting better, moving up the ranks, man. At least on the pitching side, right? You touched on it a little bit. I keep going back to ABCA and Dallas. Man, when you spoke, you said you're looking just for players to get off the barrel, man. How do we get hitters off the barrel? Keep them off the barrel. You touched on uniqueness, right? So I think you the 90 SEC average fastball is 93.7, right? That's fuzz, man. It doesn't matter where you play at. That's fuzz. It's hard to hit.
It's higher than the average AA fastball. The average AA fastball is 93.5, I think.
So that's insane right there, man. So these young men, right, if they're not pumping fuzz, they need to do something unique. You touched on some stuff. I talk to my audience is 9-hole hitters, right? So the 9-hole podcast, 9-hole mentality, underdog, chip on your shoulder. That's what it's all about, man. So maybe the people that are listening aren't first round, full scholarship type talent. Maybe they are, man. But like, how can a pitcher find his uniqueness? So you touched on, man, maybe you can disrupt timing. You're looking for dudes that maybe are sidewinders, factor in a cutter, maybe mess with different like tempos and velocities and fastballs, different spots on the rubber. You were talking about messing with that, mixing that up. Does that play a factor in maybe who you're going after? If you're looking for a pitcher,
Yeah,
you show up in high school, like how could a pitcher, if he's not throwing 94 miles an hour right now, kind of like differentiate, stand out?
sure. So everything comes into play, right? Like in a perfect world, you the first thing I would tell every kid that's trying to develop is like try to get an assessment to figure out how they move. So like try to find a strength coach that can tell you like where you're deficient and how you're moving and really get more explosive or get more mobile or get better, you know, stability or body control, right? Because before you can really figure out who it is you're going to be, like you can impact your body, and so I would start there. And then like if you're training and you're trying to figure out how you move and it's not great, right? Off like you're not really making any gains there, then you got to start to consider like, okay, well, like what can I do differently? Dropping slot is always one that like, hey, maybe it's more unique. Maybe you can sink it. Maybe you have a wider angle. Maybe you can be low release height and carry it, which is really advantageous. Learning different types of pitches, right? Like, everyone's a pronator, supernator. Some guys are like kind of in between. Like, play around with different grips. One of the easiest ways to kind of figure out what type of mover you are is throw different pitches and figure out like what's kind of nasty. Like, do you have a hellacious breaking ball? Well, you're probably a supinator. Do you throw a nasty two seamer with a gross changeup? Like, you're probably a pronator. So play around, like play with grips. I think part of the problem is like everyone's doing run and guns and like trying to chase velo, but like, you want to find uniqueness, play around with different slots and play around with some grips and figure out like I can do that all the time. I can really cut it or I can really sink it or man, I carry the piss out of it. Yeah, it's funny, right? Like everybody play wiffle ball in the backyard and they're all like trying to make the ball move. Like when you play wiffle ball, like no one's trying to throw the ball hard. They're trying to make it move. They're trying to do different stuff to get you off the barrel. Well, that's baseball too. So like if you don't throw hard and you're not physically strapping and you're not moving with explosiveness and you want to find out uniqueness and you don't have a coach and you don't have a track man and you have no knowledge of it, figure out how the hitter can become uncomfortable. Figure out how you can get the ball in the strike zone and the hitter doesn't see it very well and the hitter doesn't take good swings. The poor man's track man's always the hitter, right? So leverage counts, throw the ball for strikes, and have the hitter not be comfortable. You're the number 4 starter on your high school team, and you get one outing a year or whatever it is. Like you're gonna get some live ABs, you're gonna get some time in there. Go up to the hitters, be like, hey man, like anything. How do you see the ball on me? And start playing around. Like, hey, maybe if I move all the way to this side of the rubber, they see the ball less. Maybe if I move all the way to this side of the rubber, my ball moves more. Those things are all important. Um, I mean, there's all different kinds of things you can do with grips nowadays. Some of it's kind of complicated, but like there's seam shifting things you can do. Like almost anybody with the right information can have a unique pitch. Almost anybody with the right information can have a unique pitch. But it comes down to their desire, it comes down to how bad they want to, and it comes back down to their willingness to believe in said pitch, you know? So
That I love it. Man, I just got a couple more questions for you. Very appreciative of your time, man. So obviously, those pitchers looking to differentiate themselves, man, they can do a whole plethora of different stuff. You just touched on, man. How important, at least for arm's sake, would you say is long tossing? When should a pitcher, in your mind, start long tossing like early in their career? Because you're seeing kids now, man. Like Tommy John is in fashion now. Like Tommy John's cool. What does long tossing do? Maybe when can a player start doing that and incorporating it? Like how far do your players long toss, man? Just a whole open ended question about long toss for you.
yeah, so I've always been a really big long toss guy. I've always been a big like Alan Yeager disciple. Um, as I get older and older, we're starting to like I'm really big in objective measures and quantifying things. So we're trying to quantify work capacity. So we're really on acute to chronic workload right now. So essentially, like without sounding like a science nerd, like it's very simple. Like, and Alan Yeager has said this for years, but you must crawl before you walk, you must walk before you jog, and you must jog before you sprint. And very simply put, there's a couple different ways that you can put load on your body and on your arms specifically. Reps, volume, intensity, arm speed, distance, which is also equate to arm speed, right? So in order to maintain a healthy arm, there's a couple things that have to happen. Like you have to have strength, right? So strength in your forearm and your finger muscles and the whole shoulder capsule, lats, scapula function, right? Strength is super important. The stronger we are, the more we can mitigate injuries. And I'm not talking about like weight. I'm talking about like strengthening the entire range of motion in the forearm and the shoulder. Okay, that's huge, right? And there's a lot of ways that you can do this now. You can do this with Flex Pro Grip. You can do it with a grip dynamometer. You can do it with the Arm Care app. You can do it with a dynamometer yourself. You can just, there's so many different things you can do. And it's through range of motion and strength. I think that's super important. Second thing is super important is having the right throwing program. So like build up, build capacity. You know, it's nobody wants to throw. This is the problem you see is like kids will take like 10 weeks off from throwing. I give it rest. And maybe they're lucky enough to play another sport and be an athlete, but they take 10 or 12 weeks off. And then all of a sudden, first of the new year rolls around and they're going to go to their pitching coach and throw a pen. Whoa. You just went 0 to 100 and like right away. Like that, no, that's how guys get hurt. We got to build up capacity. For every week off of throwing you should have a week of throwing before you get to the mound. So if you're taking 12 weeks off, dude, like you got to throw 12 weeks before you can touch a mound. And you got to build to that long toss distance. And you build volume. So like I'm a little bit more passive and a little bit more conservative with this, but like we always start at 60 feet. We're going, our throwing programs are 40 throws at 60 feet, low intent. Just move your arm. 2 days in a row. Wednesday off, 60 throws. 60 feet, low intent. Play catch. Here's the analogy I'll give you, and I'll get to this more, but here's the analogy I'll give you. In your playing career, how many times have you seen an old, fat, dusty coach smoking heaters, lung darts on the side, rip like 1,000 throws a day in BP? Like that old guy's just like out there. Arm never hurts, right? Just 1,000 throws a day, right? There you go, Johnny. There it is. There it is, right? Guy's like 75. He just keeps throwing the ball over never has an arm problem. How many times have you seen that?
A lot.
Yeah. Why? He throws it low intent at high volume. If you're a coach, you're starting to probably get into coaching now. You don't throw all fall, you don't throw all summer because you're out recruiting. First day, the guys get back in fall ball. Everyone's excited. The new guys are there. Everybody wants to launch and see how good they are. And you get out there as a coach. You're excited to see all your new prospects. And you throw 2 rounds of BP. And the next morning, you're like, oh, God. Because you haven't thrown all summer. But then you just keep doing it. You're like, by like a month later, you're like, I think I threw 2,000 balls yesterday. And my arm's fine.
In a groove.
So my point being is it's a capacity thing too. It's a strength thing. It's a capacity. We have to build volume. We have to build a baseline that we can build off of. And then once we build up our baseline to we can throw to 250, 300 feet, and we built up the volume and the intensity and the bandwidth, then we can throw off a mound. And then once we're starting to throw at high intent, we say the same thing. We got to build up volume on the mound, the intensity, right? And then we have to go like high day, low day, moderate day, high off day. And we have to start tracking our plateaus. It's the same thing like in the weight room. Like you don't just go max squat every single day for 365 days a year.
For sure.
You also don't take off 3 months. You don't take 3 months off from lifting and be like, well, I used to squat 500 pounds. I haven't lifted anything in 3 months. I'm going to get on the rack and squat 500 pounds. No, you get hurt. Everybody knows that. What do you do with pitching? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's not complicated. We don't track it. We're not diligent enough. We're valuing the wrong stuff. We're valuing velocity. We're valuing scholarships. We're valuing Instagram posts. We're valuing what doesn't matter.
I love that. Man, I love that. That makes a ton of sense to me. Coach Moose, I got one more question for you. Again, extremely appreciative of your time. So this is the 9-Hole Podcast. So I made it to the big leagues in the 9-hole. I'm trying to give back information, insight I wish I had, to those players who are coming up next, man, hope to accomplish big things like grinders like yourself, man, are forging the path forward, man. What does the 9-hole mean to you? When you think of a 9-hole hitter, obviously it's going to be a little different as regarding your lineup, right? You have one of the best lineups for the best team in the country, right? But when you think of a 9-hole hitter, what do you think of? What traits come to mind? Maybe if you're attacking a guy or if it's a 9-hole hitter on your team, whatever it is, man, what are the characteristics? What comes to mind for a 9-hole hitter?
Someone that buys into the role, that understands how they're going to help their team win. All right, you're hitting in the 9-hole. Like, what do you do for us? Are you a great defender? Is that why you're playing? Do you take outs away off the scoreboard? If you take outs off the scoreboard, okay, I'm not looking at like, did you go 2 for 2? And I'm looking like, how many plays did you make for us? If that's who you are, then are you a quality at bat machine? Are you just allowing us to see a ton of pitches? Are you running pitch count up? Are you an execution bat? Like, best bunter on the team. You can really hit and run. You can handle the bat. Like, there's value. That's value. We're facing Paul Skeens and we're first and third to get to the national championship. Like, can you execute? Are you a walk machine? Like, do you just have unbelievable plate discipline? Who are you? What do you do? Do you really run? Can you really run? Like, what is it? Are you a 9-hole guy? And I don't know. I haven't seen too many of these 9-hole hitters, but maybe you're a guy that strikes out a ton but loses balls. Like, okay, fine. Like, all right, you're going to hit 210 with high punchies, but you're going to give us 18? All right, like, fine. Like, lean into it, like, figure out who you are. And it's the same thing for pitchers, right? Like, oh, you're a 1-inning guy. You're just going to come in and spin sliders. Be the best guy at that. So figure out who you are, what your role is. How do you provide value? And this is the funny thing about this. Nobody wants to be that guy. But hear me out. My good friend was a scout for a while, Ty Blankmeyer. He used to always say 70 and 80 defenders in the infield, shortstops, right? They always learn how to hit. Why do they always learn how to hit? Because they keep getting ran out there and they start to figure it out. They have a longer runway. So my point is, if you buy into your role and you figure out how you can get the runway where the coach keeps putting you out there, now you have capacity to be better. Just because you're that guy right now doesn't mean you're going to stay that guy. But the game's the greatest teacher. The game's the greatest developer. Think about professional baseball for the last 130 years. They used to have more than 60 rounds in the draft. The way that they used to develop in baseball was they would throw everything on the wall to see what sticks. And then the game would weed out who could play. Even now, to some extent in professional, now it's getting diminished quite a bit. But what were you, an 11th round pick? We're 18?
14. Same thing.
You played in the big leagues, 14th rounder. The ball don't lie. The game don't lie, right? So the best developer in baseball is the game. It's not Coach Moose. It's not Augie Garrido. It's not Joe Torre. Not that I'm in that category. I don't want to be an arrogant.
Not yet.
But my point being is, it's the game. The game's the greatest teacher. What's the best teacher? Life. Life's the best teacher. You just gotta be okay with listening to it, And so my recommendation to any 9-hole guy is figure out how to do a job that helps your team win. Yeah, you're a 210 hitter, but you got a 490 OBP. You stand on top of the plate and you don't move your feet. So you get hit by 50 pitches a year. Great. You're adding value. Like, good. All right, now figure out how to seeing enough pitches so you can do something else. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
100%. I mean,
I don't care who you are, what you do. If you're on the field, find a way to dive into what you're good at. You know?
love it. Man, I love that. I love that. Coach Moose, thank you so much. Corey Muscara, man, the assistant, the pitching coach for the number one team in the country, the Wake Forest team at Deacons. Coach, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you just blessing us with this knowledge, all these facts, man. Thank you for allowing us to kind of peer inside what you guys got going on in the program. Looking forward to seeing you guys absolutely just crush it again this year, Coach. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate you, man. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to reconnect. And it's good to see someone who is a 9-hole guy get to the show just by being tough and believing in himself, you know?
Love that. Coach Moose, thank you, man. Pleasure.
All right, have a great day.